truth can sometimes be stranger than fiction, sometimes scarier and sometimes more tragic. And in this case, it is stranger, scarier, and more tragic indeed. A while ago, a user commented on one of my videos to check out the true story behind the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. The movie is based off upon the real-life exorcism of Anneliese Michel, and her bizarre story made me really interested. So my gratitude goes out to the user who first turned my attention to it. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21st, 1952 in a small town in Bavaria, West Germany, to a devout Roman Catholic family. She had 3 sisters, and one of them died during childhood. They were raised by her parents, Joseph and Anna. Joseph was described as emotionally vacant, and Anna, her mother, was a strict, very religious woman. Anneliese Michel was also religious thanks to that, and went to attend Mass twice a week. At the fall of 1968, when she was 16 years old, Michel was at school when she suffered a severe convulsion and went into a trance-like state. And that night in bed, she suffered a kind of paralysis and couldn't breathe. She described it as like having someone sitting on her chest. She also lost continence. She was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. Temporal lobe epilepsy is a chronic disorder of the nervous system, coming from the temporal lobe of the brain, hence the name, and is characterized by sudden seizures that can last a minute or two. It can be caused by head injury, stroke, brain infections, brain tumors, or some unknown origin. A year later, Michel experienced another similar episode at school and blacked out. That night, she suffered more paralysis and other symptoms. She apparently also contracted pneumonia and tuberculosis soon after, and because of that, she had to drop out of school and was confined to bed. In February of 1970, she was transferred to a sanatorium where she could, hopefully, rest and recover. But on June 3rd of the same year, she suffered a 3rd seizure while she was there. After getting a 4th episode, they prescribed her with some psychotropic medications. During that time, she started to claim that she saw devil faces at various times of the day, but she also had some periods of euphoria, and she connected these times to her religious beliefs. After being released from the sanatorium, her personality was remarkably different. She had times of uncontrollable anger that got worse with time. She started to hallucinate during prayer and said that she heard voices telling her that she was damned and would rot in hell. She also experienced depression, and while her stay at the sanatorium was supposed to improve her physical and mental well-being, it only got worse. She was frustrated with the treatment and the drugs. She also developed an aversion to any type of religious objects and sacred places. Once she was found staring at an idol of the Virgin Mary in the dead of the night with jet black eyes, according to her mother. But at the same time, she began to take a keen interest in Christian literature, ironically enough. With the gradual decline of her state of mind, Michel started to nurture the idea that her suffering was for a greater spiritual cause, that her pain and anguish was part of God's grand scheme of things. As if it would save other people from burning in hell. The doctors also speculated that besides suffering from epilepsy, she may have had some form of schizophrenia. She started to hear knocking sounds while at night, but her sister also reported of having heard the same sounds. She visited San Damiano with a family friend, and this friend concluded that Michel was possessed by demons because she wouldn't drink the water from a Christian holy spring and couldn't walk past a crucifix. By now, her family and community were becoming more and more convinced that she was indeed possessed. Soon, her parents requested an exorcism to the church. But at first, priests refused to perform the exorcism and said that this case should be handled by mental health professionals. In fact, they recommended her to continue with her treatment. They told the family that exorcisms needed the bishop's permission. This was not something that could be granted so lightly, since in the Catholic Church the subject has to meet a strict set of criteria for official approval to be given. During that time, her condition deteriorated. Even though she was taking medication, including antipsychotics, she had started to throw objects, destroyed religious items like rosaries, holy pictures, and crucifixes. She would growl at people and was reported to eat spiders and flies, and even drank her own urine. She injured herself and saw demons. Her mother described that she threw her sister as if she were a rag doll, suggesting that she possessed superhuman strength. Her condition was getting really bad by late 1974. Hallucinations grew more intense and regular. Around that time, a priest named Father Ernst Alt approached Bishop Joseph Stangl, asking for permission to perform an exorcism on Michel. He and another priest, Arnold Renz, were granted the permission to conduct the exorcism, but Bishop Stangl ordered total secrecy. The first exorcism took place on August 3rd of 1975. Now, this was apparently a small exorcism, not what was referred to as a great exorcism. I'm not sure what the difference is, but maybe this was not as powerful as the great one, perhaps. But it didn't work, and eventually approval was given to perform a great exorcism on the 24th of September. Michel would repeatedly talk about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priests of the modern church. In total, there would be 67 exorcisms performed, with 1 or 2 a week for 10 months, and each one could be as long as 4 hours. As this went on, Michel's parents would stop talking with the doctors because she had requested it. Instead, they would rely only on the exorcisms for her to get better. And of course, that meant that she was no longer receiving her medical treatment. As the exorcisms went on, her condition got worse and worse. She was said to have developed pneumonia as well, from all the genuflections, which is basically kneeling just with one knee on the ground. Her knees had been broken and was unable to move without assistance. This was apparently part of the exorcism rituals. Her eyes blackened and she had bruises on her hands, arms, and wrists. Because she had stopped eating, her weight would fall dramatically. During these exorcisms, she would growl and lash out at people around her in Latin. Father Renz had made audio recordings of their exorcism sessions, and they are, of course, quite distressing. So listener discretion is advised.
Da kannst du nicht ran. Nur soweit sie dich lässt. Wer? Sag mir den Namen.
Ich, der Judas und der Nero, der Kain und der Hitler. 5 sind wir.
Und was der 6.?
Oh, den haben wir gelogen.
Den habt ihr dazu gelogen. Wann kraft's?
Oh, wenn nix.
Wenn.
Wir gehen den Schnitt raus. Yeah.
Bis dann. Aber dann geht ihr raus.
As you may have heard, she says the names of 4 people: Hitler, Cain, Nero, and Judas. She also claims to have been possessed by Lucifer and someone named Fleischmann, making it a total of 6 entities possessing her. Everyone knows Hitler and the biblical Cain who killed his brother, the Roman Emperor Nero, Judas Iscariot who betrayed Jesus Christ, and Lucifer or Satan. But Fleischmann was a bit puzzling. Apparently, Valentin Fleischmann was a local priest from the 15th century who was excommunicated by the church for beating a man to death and for being an alcoholic. However, not a lot of verifiable information exists today. But getting back to the story, things didn't seem to get better for her. It all came to an end on the 1st of July, 1976. Anneliese Michel died of malnutrition and dehydration. At the time of her death, she weighed only 30 kilograms or 66 pounds. She was 23 years old. Both priest and her parents were charged with negligent homicide for her death, and the trial, which attracted quite a lot of attention, began on March 1978. They were all found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and were sentenced to 6 months in jail. But their sentences were later suspended, and they only served 3 years in probation. Anneliese Michel's case was a tragic one, whether it was supernatural or not, because as the prosecution finds, her death could have easily been prevented. The state prosecutor would maintain that it could have been prevented as late as 1 week before her death, as everyone could see that she was starving and losing a lot of weight. She had refused food and her parents just let it happen, but starvation is a common part of exorcisms, as it is believed to weaken the evil spirits inside. The state prosecutor would say that because she was unable to decide for herself, her parents should have intervened and made her eat or seek medical treatment as her health deteriorated. But the sad fact is that Michel's mother preferred to believe that her daughter was possessed by demons instead of accepting that she was suffering from a mental illness, because during the time period, the stigma around mental illness was still quite great, not just in Germany but across the globe, and it is often a much worse affliction, or at least seem like one, than a demonic possession. Perhaps the understanding about mental illness was very limited back then, and the stigma terrible. Michel's mother was worried what people in the community might think if they knew that she was mentally ill. Some psychologists believe that Michel bought into the idea that she was possessed by demons thanks to her mother and the priests, and that she possibly started acting on that belief. And among other things, this gave her suffering a spiritual meaning, a greater purpose. Maybe for some people, it turned into a greater purpose, because today, Michel's gravesite has become a pilgrimage site. And on June 6th, 2013, a mysterious fire burned down the house that Michel had lived. The local authorities determined that it was arson, but some locals believe that this was related to the exorcism and her demons.